Hey you guys, this is our lesson on literal equations. And literal equations are equations that involve two or more variables. Sometimes it's useful to rearrange or solve literal equations for a specific variable in order to find a solution to a given problem. In this lesson, literal equations and formulas, or literal equations that state specific rules or relationships among quantities, will be examined. So some of the key concepts with literal equations. It's important to remember that both literal equations and formulas contain an equal sign indicating that both sides of the equation must be equal. Literal equations and formulas can be solved for a specific variable by isolating that variable. In other words, you're doing the same thing that you've been doing with solving equations. Only you're going to have letters in a lot of cases with literal equations versus numbers, and you treat them the same way. To isolate the specific variable, you use inverse operations. So all that means is if you have addition, you get rid of it by using subtraction. If you have multiplication, you get rid of it by using division. If you have division, you get rid of it by using multiplication. And if you start with subtraction, you get rid of it by using addition. When you have coefficients that are fractions, so let's pull up the pen tool. And let's be blue. If I have 1/2 x and I want to get rid of my fraction, the reciprocal is the opposite of that fraction. So I'm going to say 2/1. If I do that, when I cross multiply, those cancel out. And so do those, and I'm left with x. So my goal when I have fractions is to get rid of the fractions by using the reciprocals. Basically, what I just said is this whole thing right here. So you can feel free to read this on your own, or you can review what I just said in the last slide. All right, I'm just going to use the slides instead of the pen tool so I don't waste your time. So 4y plus 3x equals 16. The very first thing you're going to do is isolate. You're going to try to isolate y by getting rid of things. And again, you're going to get rid of the thing that's next to y at the very end. So look at what else is left. What else is left is 3x. So you're going to subtract 3x. And the reason you subtract that whole term out at one time is because it's a term. 3 and x are connected. So you can't get rid of just 3 and you can't get rid of just x. You got to get rid of the whole term, which is 3x. So you subtract 3x, and the reason you subtract is because you are, oh, look, I found the pen. Yay! The reason you subtract is because you started with a positive sign. And remember, you're doing inverse operations. So the opposite of add is subtract. So these guys cancel, which means you are left bringing down your 4y and bringing down your 16x, but you're also subtracting 3x. And this, if I were to write it, I would say 4y plus 3x. Oh my goodness. I have to do the eraser sign again. You guys are so patient. Thank you. Equals 16. Subtract 3x equals subtract 3x. Then these cancel. You're left with 4x equals negative 3x plus 16 is how I would write it. Now, it doesn't matter if you have negative 3x plus 16 or 16 minus 3x. It's the same thing. Either way, you have a negative 3x term and a positive 16 term. So don't let it trip you up if you see them written two ways. As long as the signs are the same, it does not matter. So now we need to further isolate y by dividing both sides of the equation by the coefficient. So we got to divide 4y by 4 to cancel out 4. and we divide by 4 on the other side. Now notice what's happening here. This is kind of cool. You can write this out by 16 over 4 minus 3 over 4 times x, or like they've done it here. If you'll most likely see it this way, and you have to train your eye to look at these as two separate fractions. 16 divided by 4 is 4, and negative 3x over 4 is negative 3x over 4, or negative 3/4 x. So this little x is usually written out to the side. It belongs to the whole fraction, not just to the 3. So you see 4 minus 3/4 x. You would see that because the fraction and the variable are usually written first. In slope-intercept form, you would see that as y equals negative 3/4 x plus 4. That's a 4, not a y. You would see the answer written with the variable and the coefficient and the variable first, not the constant first. Example number 4 is an example that doesn't use numbers. So formula for finding area of a triangle is A equals 1/2 BH, where B is the length of the base, H is the height. Suppose you know the area and the height, and you need to find the base. We aren't going to actually be working with numbers. We're just going to be rearranging to find the we're looking for. In order to do that, we do the same steps. We don't do anything different. We're just going to begin isolating our variables until we get what we need. In this case, we're going to isolate B by multiplying both sides of the equation by the reciprocal, or 1/2. So we have A equals 1/2 BH. This is what we're starting with. And I'm going to rewrite it. A equals 1/2 BH. We need to get rid of 1/2. The only way to get rid of 1/2 is to multiply by the reciprocal of the fraction, which is 2 over 1. This cancels. So we are left, we have to do that to the other side. 2 over 1 is the same thing as 2. So let's come down. We're left with 2a equals bh. Okay? Now, again, we have 2a equals bh. So multiplying both sides of the equation by the reciprocal is the same as dividing both sides of the equation by 1/2. Either way, the result's the same. That's how we got to this. Now we need to divide both sides of the equation by h. So we have 2a equals bh. We are solving for b. We want to get rid of anything other than b. So to get rid of h, b and h are multiplied. The opposite of multiplication is division. And what we do to one side, we have to do the other. So these h's cancel out. And we are left with b equals 2a over h is our answer. You guys have an amazing day, and don't forget to ask questions when you have them and advocate for yourself. And remember to be patient with yourself. Learning math is not super easy. It's meant to practice your brain. It's meant to strengthen your brain with practicing learning how to problem solve. You may not ever use some of this math ever in your life, but what you will use is you will use the muscles in your brain that work through these problems. When you encounter problems in life, you're going to have to work through them in the same kind of way as you work through a math problem. So just have some patience with yourself. Show yourself some grace, show yourself some courtesy, and advocate and ask for help. And most of all, have fun.